In this week's forecast, we have a Pluto Cazimi, which, to translate that from astro speak into real life speak, essentially means things are about to go down. Hi, my name is Haley Comet. This is Magic Monday, particularly your Magic Monday astrology horoscope for the week of January 20th until January 26th, 2025, honing in on not just your horoscope, but how it is that you can co-create with the cosmos of this week. How it is that you can grab hold of the more opportune energies, steer clear of the more challenging energies in order to experience more magic, flow, and alignment within your universe. So if that feels in alignment with you, we would so love to have you join us. I'm here every single week letting you know your astrological weather forecast here from my cosmic corner of the internet. And this week's astrology is particularly potent to dial into. I would argue every week's astrology is particularly potent to dial into, but perhaps I'm biased. But this week particularly, I'm thankful that you're here because there are genuine opportunities alive within your horoscope. Genuine opportunities to create forward momentum. Genuine opportunities to form connection. Genuine opportunities to mobilize with your community. Genuine opportunities in order to identify toxic or destructive habits within yourself and empower yourself. Move forward. This is alive this week. But those genuine opportunities could be muddled or muffled beneath the more dramatic energies, the more in-your-face energies of this week's astrology, namely the Pluto Cazimi. The word Cazimi means in the heart of the sun. It essentially means that the sun and another planet, in this week's case Pluto, fuse to become one. They band together in the cosmos. And it creates the solar spotlight on the planet's themes. So this is a very Plutonian week of astrology, which, yes, can be an energy around really going deep, really getting clear, really intentionally transforming or identifying what in our lives or in society's life needs transformation. Yes, Pluto can be an empowering planet in that case, but it can also be a dark planet. It can also expose the darker underbelly of things that make it necessary where change is needed. It can bring us down to themes around what in society is eroding, what within our lives is eroding. Pluto is an important paint color, right, on the planetary palette of this week's astrology as we paint on the cosmic canvas. But it's important to know that other colors are available on your palette in order to make it more nuanced and balanced. Because if we overindulge in the Pluto, if we put too much of the Pluto paint on the canvas, it doesn't genuinely help us move forward. Like the nature of Pluto, it tends to make us confront the deeper, darker realities of things. And sometimes when we confront those things, we could feel swallowed up by them. We could feel hopeless or what's the point? And while there's a genuine need this week to really acknowledge where transformation is needed, where change is needed to really get to the core of things, while that is alive within this week's astrology, there's some other more helpful energies around, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it in order to paint a more balanced cosmic canvas as it relates to your week? So it's important to know that there's more than just the Pluto Cazimi this week, and it's important to observe when you feel yourself kind of going down a Pluto Cazimi spiral, right? Mental spiral, online spiral, doom scroll spiral, self-deprecating spiral. Wherever this energy shows up, Pluto energy can be quite obsessive, and it's going to be important to observe when that's occurring within your world and shift gears, right? Put it into something constructive, put it into something that supports you in moving forward, because we have all of these trines and sextiles and lovely energies this week. Like definitely Pluto's kind of the star of the show, right? It's kind of the main cosmic color that we're painting with when it comes to this week's astrology. It's certainly the star of the show, but we also have Venus exalted trining Mars, Venus and Mars sextiling Uranus, Mercury trining Uranus. Uranus is around novelties, new ideas, new momentum. There's nice energies available. You're just going to want to remember that those cosmic colors are available on your planetary palette as you go about this week. So my question for you is, what are you going to paint this week? What are you going to create? We'll, of course, dial into everything you need to know about this week's astrology thematically as well as day by day. But before we do, take a step inside my cosmic cafe. Let me know what you are sipping on to start your week. What beverage you have by your side as you paint the magical masterpiece of your week. I am currently sipping on a cup of green tea. I'll put the tea kind right here because I honestly have forgotten because I don't have the tea bag in here any longer. And if you watch Magic Monday, you'll know that typically I'm someone where I leave the tea bag in until the very end of my cup of tea. But this tea did look higher quality and had very strict instructions around the amount of time to steep and then take the tea bag out. And I will say, it's quite delightful. So maybe there really is something to steeping. I would love to know. Are you someone who steeps for the allotted amount of time, or do you keep your tea bag in until the very end? I would love to know. Are you a steeper or a keeper? Typically, I'm a keeper, but this cup of tea might make me a steeper. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm always a keeper when it comes to the teas that have the quote on it. Like, that just makes me so happy. Me and my Mercury ruled chart loves a quote with a cup of tea. And I've been drinking a lot of tea. That is like my number one winter survival strategy, is just hot cups of tea at all times of day, because you can drink tea at any time of day. There's all sorts of delightful herbal teas, there's caffeinated teas, and I just feel like it's so deeply comforting to have a warm cup of tea in hand. So whenever I'm cold, I'm making and drinking a cup of tea. Let me know what your go-to winter survival strategy has been, what's been warming your spirit, what's been keeping you warm. And since we're all hanging out in the Cosmic Cafe, I thought I'd give a little flower update. This is the same bouquet that I was telling you guys about a couple weeks ago that I got from the grocery store, the discount section. And look how well they're doing. I mean, I have been taking out the flowers that have been wilted or things like that, but we're still rocking with that $4 bouquet, okay? The best $4 I personally have ever spent. So I just want to say, if any of you have been feeling like a discounted bouquet yourself, you've been feeling discarded, neglected, ignored, you feel like someone came over to you and put a huge sale sticker on you, and you're still feeling like shoppers are just walking by you blissfully unaware. Listen, you just have not found the right shopper, the right buyer who genuinely sees your value. And there will be lots of individuals who don't know beauty when they see it, don't know a good thing when they see it. And your value and your worth and your beauty is not defined by those people. Like, this has been one of my very favorite bouquets ever, truly. And I got them for myself for $4 at the grocery store, and they've added so much joy and beauty into my life. So it was my lucky day that all of the other shoppers didn't know a good thing when they saw it, that the individual that marked them down thought they were just worth $4. I mean, they have added week after week of beauty here on Magic Monday. So just wanted to give that little update, but let's go ahead and take it into Vibe Check of the Week. So Vibe Check of the Week is a segment here on Magic Monday in which we take all of the celestial energies of this week's astrology, with Mercury squaring Chiron opposing Mars, with Venus trining Mars, Venus and Mars sextiling Uranus, Mercury trining Uranus, the Pluto Cazimi, the last quarter moon in Scorpio. Yeah, we have a lot going on. And what we do in Vibe Check of the Week is we take all of those energies and we compare them to a real life scenario. So even if you are lost in the sauce and you're like, girly, Cazimi, who and who's talking to who and what's doing what and what does that mean for me? This is essentially an easier way to kind of tune into what feels similar so that you can make sense of how this energy may practically surface within your universe. I'm not implying that this exact situation will play out within your world, but just tune into the vibe, tune into the themes, tune into the dynamics. You may see a similar one surface as you navigate this astrology. So this week's astrology feels like the following vibe check. We will say that you've been feeling pretty blah. You know, January is just kind of one of those months, and the astrology has been what the astrology has been, and the world has been what the world has been, and you're just feeling kind of out of it. You're feeling kind of blah. And you reach a point in which you're kind of sick of feeling blah. You've been dealing with just life and everything that's been happening, both within your world as well as within the collective, in ways that are not ideal. And it's this recognition to a cognitive level that the ways that you are coping and dealing are not helping, but you feel ensnared by them. You feel unable to break free, even if you recognize that it's not constructive and it's not helpful, that it's actively destructive within your world. And we'll say that you get together with some of your friends and you all are just like venting about what's been going on within your world and just what's been happening within the world altogether. And you say, gosh, I can't stop doom scrolling. Like, I wonder how much time I would have in my day if not so much of it was consumed obsessively checking in with what's happening online. And I recognize, it's important to be informed, but I also recognize it's not making me feel good. And I feel like I get lost in a labyrinth of information and of doom that I get sucked into for multiple hours a day. Yet I feel like I don't have enough time in my day. And you're kind of just like venting to your friends, and they're also sharing certain things that they're like, yeah, I don't know why I vape so much. I don't know why I drink so much. And again, we can acknowledge these are ways and things that we are looking to cope, to escape, to numb what is happening. But there's also this recognition within this conversation around we are giving our power away to these habits, to these things that we recognize might provide temporary relief, but are really adding more harm than good. And within this conversation with your friends, you all decide, okay, let's see if we can go a week without our chosen vice. And we're all going to have a group chat. We're going to keep each other accountable. We're going to cheerlead one another whenever we feel tempted. And whenever we feel tempted to, one person is trying to give up vaping, you're trying to give up doom scrolling, somebody else is trying to give up their toxic ex. Whenever we feel tempted to indulge in that habit, that vice, we will instead alchemize that energy and put it into something else. And so you all make a pact. You all have different habits that you guys are tackling. You all have different arenas of life that you're wanting to put it into. Like, one person is wanting to replace their toxic ex with getting back into their childhood hobby of painting. One person is wanting to replace vaping with going outside and going for a walk. You are wanting to replace doom scrolling with going out and doing something to help your community, like boots on the ground, wanting to make a difference rather than just consume and consume and consume. So you all make this promise to one another, and it does help you remain more accountable. And whenever it is that you feel tempted, you put it in the group chat, and then you all have your chosen aim that you're going to redirect that energy into around, rather than reaching for the vape, oop, let me grab my walking shoes. Rather than texting my toxic ex, oop, let me grab the paintbrush. Rather than obsessively consuming content on Reddit or what have you, let me instead volunteer some of my time. And things do get real within that week. Pluto is what's beneath the surface. And that's why we have coping strategies, particularly ones that are destructive, is that it's very uncomfortable to face what's beneath the surface. We all have those things that we reach for because it's uncomfortable to face what's beneath the surface, whether it's a feeling of powerlessness, a feeling of fear, a feeling of anxiety, a feeling of being genuinely hooked on something. Like with Pluto energy alive, there could be fears that come to the surface, uncomfortable acknowledgments that come to the surface, that typically we have these pacifiers of sorts to reach for. And this is a particular week within your friendship group that you all are saying, we're not going to allow these destructive habits to be our pacifiers any longer. We're going to put our energy towards something that creates more good in the long run, even if it's uncomfortable. Change is quite uncomfortable. And when you're rooted in a particular habit, it can feel like you're going through molasses. If you're trying to change the habit, you're literally trying to rewrite a new way of being that's been encoded into you. Like you could just find yourself naturally having the reflex around, gotta check my phone, gotta scroll, or your friend just having the reflex around, gotta tell my toxic ex about this, or the other friend having that reflex to reach for the vape. Like naturally, it's encoded into our brain, it's encoded into our body to have these behaviors echoed in. And it's powerful when you can even remain conscious around that reflex, and instead of going for it, get clear around what's causing me to go for this, reach for this. Is it overall fear? Is it powerlessness? Is it anxiety? Is it me missing the roller coaster up and down of this person? Like Pluto energy can make us contemplate, what am I wanting to run from right now? What am I not wanting to face right now? Because if we can sit in that just for a moment and not pacify it in the typical ways that we do, that's where change could be found, is allowing ourselves to sit within that discomfort, and rather than going into muscle memory or into our typical neural networks of how we typically relieve the uncomfortable emotions, to supplement it with something that's ultimately more constructive until that's second nature. Until next time you're feeling out of control and powerless, rather than giving hours of your life to a social media site, ingesting other people's opinion on something, your natural next instinct is around, how can I help? How can I band together? How can I mobilize? How can I volunteer? How can I donate? Your friend, rather than running back to Joey or whoever the heck, instead, in the moment of distress, grabs the paintbrush and paints a kangaroo. That's her natural instinct. Your other friend, rather than reaching for the vape, naturally, when something stressful occurs, wear my walking shoes, I need to get outside. How powerful could that be if in the face of distress and stress, your natural instinct is to reach for something that's ultimately going to be better for your well-being? Change is uncomfortable, both on a personal level as well as a collective level. We can't run away from that. It's a Pluto Cazimi in Aquarius. We are all witnessing the major ways in which change and transformation is taking place. And of course, in a perfect world, we would want that change to happen overnight. But think about, even to a personal level, how hard it is for you to change. If you've ever tried to replace a bad habit, if you've ever tried to walk away from a toxic ex, if you've ever tried to get your doom scrolling under control, it's challenging. Change is. We have certain ways of operating. And I am of the belief, particularly when it comes to the sun being in Aquarius on Pluto, the sun is in its detriment in Aquarius. It does not particularly like being here simply because the sun is around ego and identity, and Aquarius is around groups and people. And there's like an acknowledgement this week around, if we want to see change within the world, we have to really embody that change that we want to see within the world. And we could say all day and all night around how we want everything to change and everything needs to be different, but this is a particular week in which it might be potent and powerful to look in the mirror around the ways that you might be sick of yourself, or the ways in which you are watching yourself numb or cope or escape in ways that you recognize is not leading to your empowerment. When we have a Pluto Cazimi, of course, there's going to be a spotlight on power and who has it, especially within the collective with the energy of Aquarius. But since within Magic Monday, I really like to talk to how we're feeling this astrology within our individual lives. It's also a powerful week to tune into where you are giving your power away. A lot of people, entities, apps, organizations, a lot of things benefit when you do not recognize how powerful you are, when you feel at the mercy of these vape companies, or at the mercy of that toxic ex, or at the mercy of these apps showing you the content that you want to consume. The apps want you to be in that spiral on them. That ex wants you to be hooked on them. The vape companies want you to consistently be buying vape. It's profitable, honestly, for us to not recognize our own power and to kind of like sleepwalk through life. That's the nature of Pluto, honestly, is that it is a little bit of a wake-up call, because it kind of like gets to the core of something. Because if we don't recognize why we are spending hours and hours numbing out from our life, going online and just consuming content, or if we do not recognize why we keep running back to the same person, or why we are going through 3-4 vapes a day, right? If we just kind of sleepwalk through it, we won't ever kind of like question, what am I feeding here? And Pluto energy tends to kind of get to the core around uncomfortable realities, uncomfortable truths, or even with this happening in Aquarius, an air sign, a desire for clarity, because that nature of the group chat, that camaraderie, is reflected in the astrology by Mercury trining Uranus, Venus and Mars sextiling Uranus, Venus trining Mars. Maybe somebody in the group chat has to kind of type in all caps, like, walk away from the vapes, don't do it, like kind of bully or be a little bit more assertive when it relates to keeping their friends in check. That's represented by Mercury opposite Mars. But we'll say within this exercise, just within your friend group, we'll say that a lot of you really arrived to a genuine feeling of clarity. Maybe it's getting clarity over what makes you run to that particular thing. Maybe it's even recognizing the discomfort that arises when you don't have that thing to reach for. Isn't that powerful or poignant? If any of you have ever cut something out, sometimes it's very illuminating around how badly you crave it, how badly you miss it. You don't realize how much something has a hold on you until you see what your life looks like without it. And then you recognize, oh wow, this has quite a hold on me, right? but it also provides this mental clarity within the group of you around maybe there was certain acknowledgments that came to the surface. Mercury also squares Chiron, so acknowledgments around why these habits are built in for us to not want to feel or face uncomfortable truths or painful loops within our own mind that we would rather not deal with. But also that empowerment can transfer over other arenas of life. Around now that I've been able to kick out the vaping, kick out this toxic ex, kick out the doom scrolling, it makes you feel more empowered to tackle maybe something a little bit bigger within your life that needs change, and maybe something a little bit bigger in your life that needs change, because you've built that belief in yourself around, I can change my life. I can transform. I can go against what feels like inertia, keeping me in place or keeping me in momentum of directions that I don't want to go in. Sometimes that's the powerful part. So even if it's something very small that you tackle this week, it can be very empowering to recognize this does not have control over me. This does not have power over me. I am empowered. I can change my life, because it's not about necessarily habits. We're not in Virgo season. We've got South Node of Virgo. I'm not saying that this week you need to start waking up at 5 and drinking green juice and all of that. I mean, if you want to, go for it. But I think this week is recognition around where it is that we've been giving our power away and doing one thing in order to reclaim it, to step into it, to remember it truly. So we'll go ahead and take it into our day-by-day analysis. I just want to let you know that I am located within California, and that means that all time zones that I mention within my forecast are PST. So please adjust to your time zone if you're located elsewhere within the world. I also want to let you know I have timestamps below should you feel called to jump to a particular day or jump back to a particular day. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into the astrology for Monday, January 20th. So on Monday, January 20th, I want to let you know firstly that the moon is in balanced, harmonious Libra all day long. We are newly in Aquarius season. That began yesterday. You can get caught up on last week's Magic Monday above. So we've got an air sun and an air moon. And air always brings our attention to connection, camaraderie, community. And that's important to remember this week. That's why within the vibe check, it's banding together as a friend group around, hey, let's keep each other accountable. Pluto Cazimi in Aquarius, there's power in numbers. And that can show up in big picture ways around where it is that you are mobilizing with other humans in order to move in the directions of change that you desire on a bigger scale, but also acknowledging how that shows up just within a smaller scale around your online networks, your communities, your neighborhood, your friend groups. There's power in numbers. And with the Libra moon, it might be making some tense aspects today that we'll be talking about, but there's also power in connection. There's power in vulnerability. There's power in allowing yourself to genuinely share what is alive within your world, maybe even within a vulnerable way. That friend group gathering could have gone a different way had everyone just been pretending that their lives were perfect and that they were not struggling in the ways that they were, right? It probably would not have facilitated the same amount of vulnerable, powerful conversations. And it's important to be aware of that, because the very nature of Libra moon, of course, it wants things to be pretty, it wants things to be harmonious, it wants everybody to get along. But I think with this essentially cardinal T-square forming, so the Libra moon opposing Chiron, the two squaring Mercury, because Mercury squares Chiron early tomorrow, so we'll definitely feel it today as well. But essentially with this cardinal T-square, it is a reminder around how deeply we can connect when we allow ourselves to be seen, when we stop trying to pretend like everything's perfect. Because if you were, you would probably leave that interaction feeling like a freaking alien. If everybody was just talking about how everything was fine and good and great, you would feel like such a weirdo, such an alien for, gosh, I can't believe, my mental health has been so bad that I've just been online for hours and hours and hours, and I don't feel like I'm able to rip myself away from it. Again, the nuances of what everybody was doing to cope were different, right? You all had different things that you guys reached for, but even just being able to have an honest, vulnerable dialogue around it allowed you to not feel like such an alien, right? It's Aquarius season, and Aquarius placements sometimes have this alien complex. And I'm not even talking about the literal aliens, which is another story, very Pluto and Aquarius coded, let me say that. But I mean, just feeling like an alien within this experience. You know, like those social dynamics or those group dynamics where you just cannot relate and you feel like you're on a different planet. The nuances are different. We're all different. But even just being able to be honest around, yeah, this is what I'm moving through, this is what I've been doing to cope, allowed all of you to genuinely support one another, which helped drive change. A lot of times when we feel weird and different, it supports us in feeling isolated, which makes us perpetuate these bad, destructive, or toxic habits in secret, where we don't necessarily feel as comfortable opening up to other individuals. Again, sometimes this feeling of feeling like an alien or just different than other people can make you feel this energy of shame or secrecy, that there's certain habits or things that make you weird or different that need to be hidden at all cost. And sometimes when we're able to connect with other individuals in a more vulnerable way, we acknowledge that maybe the actual things that we reach for and look towards are different, but there's no shame in it. You don't have to feel like an alien or a weirdo. We all have more in common than we do different. And maybe that's a sense of camaraderie and connection that you're able to find around you. And perhaps that's alive within your dynamics on Monday around having very real, vulnerable, maybe uncomfortable conversations on Monday. But maybe it's also even listening to podcast episodes or listening to YouTube videos or being able to read books or things that allow you to not feel like such an alien. Because a lot of times if we're struggling, if we're moving through something, if we recognize that we're in a habit that is not good, we do feel isolated. We do feel different. We feel like we're on our own island, which just perpetuates those negative cycles because it leads us to this feeling of shame. And what do we look to in order to numb or suppress shame? Likely the toxic or destructive habit. So it just reinforces itself. So even just getting together with other individuals, whether that's in real life via a support group of some sort, whether that's online via like an online support group, an online community, or a podcast that feels resonant with what it is that you are moving through, sometimes it helps to just recognize that you are truly not alone. And while all of our battles look different, everybody is battling something. And it might be helpful to get together, to band together, to even just vent, have a group chat, send a meme. Just remember to intentionally nourish the people that you are connected to or intentionally nourish connection within your world. There's power in numbers. Pluto Cazimi in Aquarius is a recognition of that. And in the morning time, the Libra moon will square Mercury in Capricorn. So again, there could be dueling desires. Libra moon wants to keep the peace, to be harmonious, but with Mercury in Capricorn, there also might be a need to stand on business. So maybe as it relates to some sort of business or work situation, there could be these competing desires around, I want us to all get along, but I also have to correct you on this mistake that you made. It could be hard to like navigate these dueling desires around, why can't we all be friends, but also I'm your boss, so I have to say this. There could be something a little uncomfortable on Monday around that. But also the Libra moon opposes Chiron. So again, we have this cardinal T-square building pulling in Mercury squaring Chiron. So even if it doesn't relate to work, there could just be this energy around feeling the feels, feeling more sensitive, feeling a sensation of pain for humanity in a sense, with us being so new into Aquarius season and this Pluto Cazimi building. You might be feeling more sensitive as you navigate Monday. And as we go later and later, you might be feeling kind of mad. Honestly, the Libra moon squares Mars in Cancer at 8:34 p.m., at which point the moon is void, so not too terribly productive after that point. But with the energy of moon square Mars, you might just be feeling tired. You might just be feeling tired. And again, maybe there's real life battles that are happening, but it also feels like some of the battles are happening in here, right? We've got Mercury in Capricorn squaring Chiron in Aries. So just being very conscious around not being mean to yourself is the biggest thing here. Because like I said, shame puts us on an island, right? Where we feel more isolated from other individuals. And sometimes when we are in a habit that we recognize is very bad and we beat ourselves up, it keeps us in that particular habit. It reinforces what we're trying to move away from. So let's say you're trying to, kick out Joey. You're trying to kick out vapid. You're trying to not doom scroll. If you do, don't beat yourself up. Don't be hard on yourself. Just recognize, hey, I did that. What was the emotion that I was feeling that made me go towards that? Stay mindful within the process. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be hard on yourself. You know, life is hard enough. You don't need to be your own worst critic from within, which is why it's helpful to have a support group or group chat or what have you, because of course, sometimes we need a friend who like lovingly puts us in check. We saw Venus and Saturn separating in the cosmos. We have Mercury and Capricorn opposing Mars midweek. Yes, this can make people around us be a little bit more blunt or assertive, but there really is just a recognition this week. Like, would your best friend talk to you the way that you talk to yourself? Would you talk to your best friend the way that you talk to yourself? Probably not. And that's where it's helpful to have that group chat, because of course, you know, if your friend fesses up and pops in the group chat, I reached out to Joey, or if one friend says, I took a puff off of my friend's vape, like, of course, you guys are going to be like, come on, like, you got this, like, let's get back on track, but you're not going to harass her. You're not going to call her a loser or anything like that. So why are you doing that to yourself? Okay, why are you doing that to yourself? So that's why it's helpful to band together with numbers, because other people are not going to be as harsh with us as we would be for ourselves, which then perpetuates shame and isolation and all of that. So just be mindful of that. I would also say with Moon square Mars, you could just be feeling more drained, exhausted, emotional, mad, frustrated. Again, the Libra moon wants to keep the peace, but with Mars in Cancer, we could be feeling a little bit more crabby, a little bit more irritated around things, even if they are minor. Mercury square Chiron lands very early on Tuesday. So I just really want you to be mindful of that energy in the late hours on Monday. Because with Mercury square Chiron, yes, it could be being very hard on ourselves, or even just having certain wounds inflamed, irritations inflamed. That might be important to keep in mind as you navigate Monday. If people are a little sharp with you, it's likely battles that they are facing. Again, doesn't make it okay for them to be sharp with you. But with Mercury square Chiron, there could be things that you say that unintentionally trigger other people. There also could be things that other people say that unintentionally trigger you. The ask is just to remain mindful. So on Tuesday, January 21st, we have some intense astrology today. So I just want to preface and start there because, again, I think it helps to acknowledge the big ways and the small ways that we are all connected. It's very easy. Pluto's a very polarizing planet. It's very easy to hone in on what separates us or what makes us different or what makes us feel like enemies towards one another. But it's also important to acknowledge what brings us together. Again, we're all fighting different battles. We all have different nuances within our world, but even just feeling banded together around this astrology, or again, you could experience this within your community, your friend group, things like that. It could be easy with this energy of Pluto to focus on the polarity or the extremes that are alive, but with the energy of Aquarius, see where there is more commonality or more camaraderie, or even just being able to vent or commiserate about the current cosmos. Again, you all know my style. I am somebody who really strives to hone in on the positive attributes of the planetary energies. There's lots of positives alive this week, but early this week, things could just feel a little intense. And I think it's important to just remind you that if you're feeling this, this too shall pass, and know that while we might all be experiencing it in different arenas of our life or in different ways or in different layers, it's important to know we're in this together. You know, we're a community here at Magic Monday, so feel free to commiserate or vent or share within the comments what's coming up. But to give more nuance to this, so firstly, just after midnight at 12:06 a.m. PST, Mercury in Capricorn squares off with Chiron in Aries. Now, Mercury is a new territory of the sky direct. Even though Mars is retrograde, which might have you feeling a little bit more drained, depleted, and defeated, and it is important to honor the fluctuations of your body and nourish yourself from the inside out. We've been talking about this with Mars and Cancer. This is deeply important. But when it comes to this week's astrology, while there's some intense energies that are absolutely looming with this Pluto Cazimi, there's a lot of forward momentum that I want you to grab hold of, whether it's new ideas, new conversations, new habits that are setting in, new accountability partners, new projects. There is forward momentum alive here, and I would encourage you to grab hold of it, because next week, Venus actually enters its pre-retrograde shadow period. Yes, we have a Venus retrograde on the horizon. We also have a Mercury retrograde coming up in March. And I share that not to discourage you, like really, we have Mars retrograde until the end of February and then these retrogrades in March. I just share that so you could sort of plan and move with the cosmos, bob and weave with the cosmos accordingly. Particularly if you have to meet with an accountant or handle something financially. I'm not saying you need to handle it before Venus enters its pre-retrograde shadow, but maybe get the appointment with your accountant on the books. Maybe start to go through the receipts while we have some new Mercury energy. I just want to highlight that with those retrogrades coming up in March. You guys know I'm always going to give you the heads up on things, okay? But essentially, back to Mercury. So Mercury is a new territory of the sky. Mercury's in Capricorn. So we be in business, okay? We're standing on business and we're looking at things rationally and logically. And sometimes we need that, whether it's to give ourselves tough love around, listen, this is not the most empowered version of you. Like, would the most empowered, actualized version of you be fighting with Joey until the wee hours of the morning? Probably not. Would the most empowered, actualized version of you be lying in bed for hours and hours in the morning, just obsessively consuming more and more content, feeling worse as you do? Probably not. And with Mercury in Capricorn, it's just kind of giving yourself that loving pep talk. But with the square to Chiron, not allowing it to come from this energy of guilt or shame or beating yourself up, being very, very hard on yourself around, you freaking loser, get off your phone, because that doesn't actually perpetuate positive change. That's why connection and support groups are helpful, because there is that spirit of acceptance. Yes, maybe lovingly giving you a kick in the butt around, really, you reached out to Joey, really, you bought another vape, but also just knowing every single day is an opportunity to begin again. And any sort of positive lifestyle change should be centered around wanting to move towards our greatness, not wanting to battle off our worst qualities. It's always more supportive to be honing in on what it is that you want rather than battling what it is that you do not want. So it's not that your friend is battling to get away with Joey. Your friend is battling in order to move to a space of so much self-love that she's not even tempted by dynamics that don't see her true value. Your other friend is not battling her reliance on vapes. She is moving towards a lifestyle of more health and well-being. You are not battling an addiction to your algorithm. You are loving yourself enough to know that there's a more positive way of spending your time. That's why it's helpful if you're ever trying to kick a bad habit or to release something from your life, replace it, world build. Withdraw from the bank account of your mind, Mercury and Capricorn, sometimes it helps to think about it financially. Literally see yourself going to the ATM of the bank account of what it is that you want to draw your energy out of. So it's like, I need to draw my energy out of, the Joey bank, the vape bank, the TikTok bank, whatever it is. See yourself withdrawing from that, but you need to put that energy somewhere, which is why it helps to supplement it around every time I feel tempted to do this, I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to take that money, take the deposit from that arena of my life. I'm going to world build in this other arena. It's super helpful. If you're wanting to get over somebody, if you've navigated some sort of tough friendship breakup or something, Pluto could be a very obsessive planet. And of course, if there's something missing from our life, we're going to obsess around that void that it fills. So it's helpful to supplement and put that money, put that currency into something else, to get so excited about the world that you're building rather than the world that you're moving away from, and to really see it from a space around knowing your worth or knowing what it is that you want to build and doing it for that, not doing it because, gosh, I'm so ashamed that I was stuck in this particular cycle, or I hate myself that I keep doing this to myself. It's just around, I deserve more and I'm going to go get more because I am so worthy of it. And like I was saying, this energy could be particularly alive Monday night because it lands so early on Tuesday, but we could say things that unintentionally trigger other people. Other people could say things that unintentionally trigger us. Our words might carry a little bit more of a bite, even if we're not aware of it. Like Chiron energy can just inflame very wounded parts of ourselves, where someone could have just been like, okay, what ice cream flavor do you want? But it could have inflamed a part of us where it's like, what ice cream flavor do I want? I feel so indecisive. I've been told I'm so indecisive ever since I was younger. Why don't I trust myself? Just be conscious. Pluto energy could be kind of spiral energy. Chiron energy could make these spirals come from a deep part of us that really wants love and nurturing, but it can make us be either more hard on ourselves or react to others because there's this more sensitive, inflamed part of us triggered. So that's just one thing I would say to be mindful of. I would also say with Mercury square Chiron, again, journaling, writing, talking about vulnerable topics of what's coming up, reading books that are supportive with healing, listening to podcasts that are supportive with healing, listening to videos that are supportive with healing. It's giving like, play one of these while you're sleeping. If you ever listen to like binaural beats or, energy frequencies or even like sleep hypnoses or things like that, this might be a helpful time with Mercury square Chiron around rewriting these underlying scripts. Especially, the Pluto Cazimi lands around 4 a.m. on Tuesday, and Pluto also has to do with psychology. And so with the energy of this Pluto Cazimi, again, there's much to be said about this on a big picture, more collective level. Pluto is around destruction. It's around transformation. It's around change in a very like guttural, deep, uncomfortable way. And so that could be alive. And sometimes things have to get worse rather than they get better. Like Joe Dispenza talks about something similar like this around if you clean out a closet, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, right? Because you got to take everything out. And you find things back there where you're like, wow, I still had this or this was still here. But it's for the purpose of things getting better. But a lot of times with Pluto energy, it just digs up all of this ugly stuff that might have been in the shadows, right? Which is why sometimes when you cut something out, you recognize all of this other stuff because you don't have your go-to pacifier in order to numb it or in order to suppress it or not deal with it. It gets worse before it gets better. A lot of times when it comes to genuine empowerment or moving in a direction that's ultimately more constructive for us, there can be an energy around dealing with some darker themes or some darker topics, right? Because we don't have that go-to pacifier. So we kind of have to sit with it, which is where it's helpful to have group chat or just places where you could put that energy in, because Pluto energy tends to dig up this stuff around, wow, I thought I was just doom scrolling for this, but turns out I've been avoiding this within my life, or, your other friend not being able to vape recognizes that it's coming from these other arenas of life. Like, there's a lot of our behavior that's driven from very unconscious places, and really the energy of Pluto is bringing what's unconscious to our conscious brain, which is not always easy, right? It's not always easy, and sometimes it's so uncomfortable that we just want to go back into being blissfully unaware. Go back to just sleepwalking and doing things that are bad for us and feeling bad about it. It's not comfortable, but the energy of Pluto is around. The only way out is through. Walk through the discomfort. It won't be as hard as it is right now. Not all of us need to literally be detoxing from something or releasing a bad habit or something like this, but I would say this week's astrology may be, supportive for it. And you'll know when it's time for you, because I'm not casting judgment on how anybody chooses to spend their time or spend their money. It's a harsh world. Who am I to judge how anybody navigates it or deals with it? But if you just recognize you're like, this is not good for me, or you just get a nudge around, I wonder what it would be like to not do this. Like, I would encourage you to follow that. If anything, just to prove to yourself that you can do it. And sometimes you'll just get a nudge around, I'm feeling randomly inspired that I want to try being vegan. I'm getting randomly inspired that I want to see if I can cut out coffee. I'm getting randomly inspired that I want to start juicing. I want to start praying in the morning. I want to start meditating. Again, grab a hold of those moments, those flickers of change, because so many of our thoughts are the exact same day to day. So when a new thought just kind of flutters in, it's exciting. Grab hold of it around, this is interesting, because so many of them are just perpetuating in the same habits and the same complaints and the same things. So when something new enters around, I wonder if I could grab it. Play with that. Play with possibility. That's the energy of Aquarius. And know that if you do decide that you want to move towards change this week, you want to do something that empowers yourself, I'm supporting you. Everybody within the comments is supporting you. And I think that energy around the discomfort of sitting in it or being in that space of change, right? Being halfway in your old life and your new life is echoed by the last quarter moon in Scorpio, which lands midday on Tuesday, which the energy of Scorpio is around essentially transformation. But it's important to note, like, Scorpio is a fixed sign. Aquarius is a fixed sign. I know we think of these signs as change and all of this, and yes, they do archetypally speak to this, but fixed is around consistency, like the consistency of how change needs to show up. It's not just deciding to do something different the next one day, it's choosing to also perpetuate that behavior the following day until that's your new muscle memory. That's your new norm, right? It's not just not texting toxic Joey one day, it's also choosing that the next day and choosing that the next day and choosing that the next day until that's the normal. And that's why inertia could be very powerful. And just knowing that your life is a bus, your life is a boat, your life is a train. You could choose your transportation, transportation of choice. But what I want to highlight here is that your life has momentum. We're not always conscious of it. We don't always realize that the sum of our habits and our actions day to day, it's taken us somewhere. And sometimes you have to like get real around, do I like where this is taking me, right? Where is the final train depot of this toxic habit that I have with Joey, or this situation with my vape, or just giving hours and hours of my life to this app? Like, what is the final stop here? Do I like that final stop? Not to be morbid, but I mean, Scorpio moon, Pluto energy, sometimes it gets kind of intense in that way around where am I going? And sometimes it's powerful, and Pluto energy just kind of snaps us into awareness around, I want to get off this train. I want to get off this train, even though I don't know where it is that I am. I want to see if I could build momentum in a positive direction. And it's hard because you have to choose it day in and day out until it's a consistent practice, until it's a consistent, essentially, rhythm to build momentum in this new direction. But if you keep doing what it is that you're doing, you will keep getting what it is that you're getting. And if you let your unconscious behaviors drive you, that will lead to you feeling like you are sleepwalking through life. And a lot of times it's uncomfortable to acknowledge what needs change or what is enforcing these more toxic or destructive habits within ourselves. Like, we all have different reasons why we do what it is that we do, right? Your friend might have like kind of a trauma bond situation with Joey. Your friend might have a literal reliance on nicotine. You may find that when you are tapped into your phone, you don't have to deal with other arenas of our life. Like, we all have different reasons why we make the choices that we do. And there's a lot of power in bringing these things that are beneath the surface to the surface, but it also could be a little painful and a little uncomfortable, which Tuesday's astrology reinforces, especially since I spoke to the last quarter moon. So it's a check-in point from last week's Cancer full moon. Let me know how that was for you, by the way, and a check-in to next week's Aquarius new moon. And last quarter moons are essentially a crisis of spirit lunar phase. It can bring up a lot of themes around, what do I need to release? What do I need to let go of? What is getting in the way of my own transformation, of my own empowerment? And that's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable. And if it helps, if you yourself are trying to kick a bad habit or something of that nature, just take it day to day, but every single day, choose who it is that you're evolving to be. Choose the train depot that you really want to get to, right? Even if it's uncomfortable to get off the train in order to get on a different one, right? So on Wednesday, January 22nd, the moon is in Scorpio all day long. And I just want to highlight here, you know, we've got the sun in detriment, which I shared briefly on. We've also got the moon in its fall. And what that means is that the sun and the moon are not dignified at this point in time. So they're kind of sitting in territory that they're not the most comfortable within. And again, change is uncomfortable. There's a lot that's happening this week that might be a little uncomfortable, but with the Scorpio moon trining Saturn, there does feel to be something stabilizing, alive within Wednesday. Scorpio moon feels things intensely, and there's also a degree around wanting to control how it is that we're feeling, can also be alive when it comes to Wednesday, which again can sometimes echo why we stay in things that we know are destructive or not good for us, because sometimes it is a protective strategy. We don't want to acknowledge uncomfortable realities. That could also be alive with Mercury in Capricorn squaring Chiron, needing to face something that's painful. You know, sometimes we strive to rewrite history or tell ourselves that it's something different just because we're trying to protect ourselves from the uncomfortable truth about something. Like, we'll say the friend who's trying to kick the Joey habit, you know, that could be uncomfortable to like really recognize the dynamics of the relationship. And there might even be parts of it that she doesn't fully recall because her mind doesn't want her to fully go there, right? Doesn't want her to take out all the stuff from the closet for self-preservation. Like, it's easier to be like, oh, it's because we love each other, or this person does have good intentions, while pushing certain parts of that dynamic into the closet around, well, you know, he did this or this happened or things like that. And that acknowledgement does come with time. I just want to share that just in case anybody is still kind of like fresh from something. There's a bit of like a defrosting period when it comes to stepping away from any sort of environment, any sort of habit, anything within your life that was causing you a lot of pain. You'll find as time continues, you defrost, you start to remember certain elements of it around, dear God, how did I forget that this happened? Or dear God, how did I see it like this when it's so clear it's like this? It's painful. It's definitely a defrosting, like more and more layers come to the surface that you have to mentally grasp or mentally take on, because we just wouldn't be able to handle it if it all kind of came out at once in a certain way. So I just want to share that just in case anybody, even if it wasn't recent, even if it's been years, sometimes like 2 years later when you have distance from a situation, you're like, dear God, and I forgot that this happened, and I forgot that this happened. It takes time. So it's allowing yourself to lovingly process what you might be remembering or what may be coming to the surface. And it's just knowing that, you know, healing takes time. I know it's so annoying. My Virgo moon, I literally put in my phone my deadline where I was like, okay, you're allowed to be sad about this until this time. I gave myself 2 weeks. I was like, all right, you got this eclipse and then you're not going to be sad. And I'm still sad about it. Like, it hits at random times, you know, it hits at random times. And there's also layers around, dear God, and there was this, and there was this, and this happened. I forgot about this, and now I see this clearly. Things just take time. So be gracious with yourself in that process of defrosting. And what I would say, you know, the energy of the Scorpio moon trine Saturn just feels like wanting to build some stability in order to cope or deal with the more intense emotions that are coming to the surface, or really wanting to build in the structures and the habits that help you process the more intense dynamics of life in a more grounding way in some ways. So this week's vibe check is all around habits. That's not going to be the case for everybody. But again, it's just recognizing, okay, I could go on my phone, which is going to relieve it for a little bit of time. I could reach for my phone, which is just going to delay these uncomfortable feelings, or I could do something that puts me in a more positive direction, not negating or erasing what it is that I'm feeling, but rather than avoiding what's uncomfortable by distracting it with my phone or my vape or my ex or whatever it is. It's this energy around, you know, it might be hard to reach for my walking shoes instead, grab a paintbrush instead, call up some local soup kitchen instead. That might be challenging, but ultimately after I've volunteered, after I've painted a kangaroo, I don't know why that friend's always painting kangaroos. Who knows? It's her passion. Better than Joey. After your friend goes for a walk, ultimately you'll feel better. It's a smarter usage of time. It's more time honored. It's more constructive rather than destructive. So maybe there's even themes of what's coming up on Wednesday where it's like doing the hard thing, but the thing that's really setting you up to feel better in a certain way. You know, I'm big on self-care, of course, but self-care is not always doing the thing that's the easiest or what's right in front of us or satiating the immediate need. Sometimes it's doing the hard thing. Sometimes it's fighting against inertia, fighting against muscle memory to do what future us would be proud of. If anything, you know, this community is cheerleading you. There's lots of communities that are cheerleading you, but also know that your future self is cheerleading you. Your future self needs you right now. And the only way out is through. It's like, especially if you're trying to kick something bad or you're trying to make any sort of change, the in-between is so uncomfortable, but your higher self is so grateful that you are walking through it. And I just want to share, just in case this does come up within anyone's week around genuinely needing to kick something out of their life, this helped me so much not go back to something that I knew was not good for me. A couple of things, actually. Like, one, I would say community can be super helpful. Healing material that supports who it is that you're evolving to be rather than who it is that you are, while also giving you full context around what it is that you've gone through, allowing yourself that defrosting period. Also, the moment that you feel tempted, let's say you're the friend who's trying to give up vaping, the moment that you feel tempted or, it'd just be so much easier if I could go get a vape. Open up your calendar, put in a date 3 months from that time, and then put in a date 6 months from that time. And recognize that when you indulge something that you know is not good for you, especially if you've made forward momentum, you've just set yourself back 3 months' time. 6 months time. You've just set yourself back that amount of time. Is that worth it? It's not worth it. and it's not loving. The Scorpio moon is building to trine Venus and Pisces. So again, see doing the hard thing is something very loving. See doing the hard thing is something that's deeply honoring self. See doing the hard thing, even with the Scorpio moon building to trine Mars and Cancer the next day, see doing the hard thing as a way to protect yourself, right? To protect your emotions, to be your own fiercest mama bear, something like this. So on Thursday, January 23rd, do not let the Pluto vibe of this week's cosmic canvas that we were discussing take you away from where it is that you can enact genuine change within your world, within your community. Do not allow the Pluto energy to overpower that, because Pluto energy, it can make us feel very powerless, right? It can make us feel like, I don't know what's happening within the world. I feel out of control. It could bring up themes around obsession and temptation and all of this that makes us feel very powerless. But we have a very soft, subtle energy, but one that is supportive for moving our energy in new directions, ultimately more nourishing, nurturing directions. Painting instead of going back to Joey, walking instead of vaping, volunteering instead of doom scrolling. Like, Mars is our energy levels, it's our action, it's how it is that we take action. And with the soft flow of energy to Uranus, the planet of novelty, this could be a time in which we are motivated to move in new directions, move in new ways, advocate for ourselves in new ways, do different things, right? And it's interesting looking at Thursday's astrology because Mercury opposes Mars and then Mercury trines Uranus. And it kind of just brings in that energy of when you get kind of sick of yourself. When you get kind of sick of yourself, when you're just in that energy where maybe you're sick of hearing yourself vent about something, maybe you're sick of journaling about the same thing over and over again, maybe you're just sick of like being in bed, just looking at your phone, being mean to yourself. Like, you get to a certain point where you give yourself that like kick in the butt where it's like, okay, I'm over this. Like, I've got to do something different. You know, we can think that change needs to show up in this huge dramatic way around changing everything at once, but sometimes there's this energy around being sick of something and just knowing that we have the power to change something within our life. And that helps build the muscle around recognizing that these changes can show up in bigger ways and bigger ways and bigger ways, right? Not feeling powerless over this experience. You know, Mercury opposite Mars would be the energy in the group chat. If somebody, you know, falls off, somebody, you know, buys a vape, or somebody texts Joey or something like this, like Mercury opposite Mars is like, you were doing so good. We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you, right? And it's said with love, but it's just really that energy. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have felt that with your friends where you see them because you're not in the pattern. And you see them at a pattern and you're just like, come on, like, you are such a freaking goddess. You are brilliant. You are powerful. You are hilarious. You have so much to offer this world. And you are just in this toxic cycle with freaking Joey. And I'm cracking up because it just hit me, like, Joey. And that was the girl who's always painting the kangaroo paintings. I did not mean to do that. But maybe that's where it came from because it just came out of nowhere. I don't ever know what's going to come out of my mouth. But anyways, you see her and you can't understand it because you're not in it, right? And that's why it can be helpful to, you know, motivate or pep talk our friends because we see them and we're removed from, you know, their own narrative, how it is that they talk to themselves, you know, their own trauma that can make them drawn to certain things, their own wounds that they're seeking to alleviate. You know, we don't know the deeper intricacies of all that. And from out of it, sometimes it's just like, girl, like, wake up, like, come on. Or seeing your friend who's harming her pretty little lung by sipping these vapes all day, every day. It's just like, come on. Again, we don't understand the intricacies. So it's not saying you have to be mean to anybody, but the energy of Mercury opposite Mars, it could just be this energy around either giving yourself a pep talk around, okay, I'm over you. You got to do something different. Or giving a friend of yours a pep talk, giving, you know, someone that you employ a pep talk. I will be honest, you know, Mercury opposite Mars, it could go pep talk, especially with the trine to Uranus around, let's do something different. Come on. It could be a little crabby or a little spiky or a little irritated, okay? Like, we can just not be in the mood today and our words can be a little sharp from that, but it just kind of gives that energy around when you just get sick of something. You get sick of hearing yourself talk about something. You get sick of watching yourself do the same thing over and over. You get sick of seeing a friend in a similar cycle, and it's just like this energy around, come on, what are we doing? What are we doing? We could do something different, right? With the trine to Uranus, that's when I've realized that it's time for me to change something, is when I'm just so sick of hearing myself talk about the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm so grateful that I have a YouTube channel where y'all let me talk about things over and over again. I have friends who will let me talk about the same thing over and over again. Like, I'm so grateful to have the support networks that I do. But at a certain point, I'm just like, girl, how are we still on this? How are we still talking about this? In this wide, wonderful world with Mercury direct in new territory of the sky, there's got to be different things to talk about. There's got to be different things to think about, right? With Mercury in Capricorn trining Uranus in Taurus. That's why it's been helpful, that ATM exercise that I've been telling you about. I've just been trying to pull out the energy, my mental loops of situations that are painful and putting it into new projects. And it's been so helpful. Like, I've been telling you guys about my project around my home. I've been building some momentum there. Fingers crossed, my dishwasher is allegedly meant to be installed next Wednesday. I know you guys are on the edge of your seat on my dishwasher saga, but I've been making momentum and it feels good to world build. It feels good to put energy towards new projects rather than thinking about the same old stories, the same old loops, the same old pain, viewing it from different angles. It just feels good to build some new momentum. Even though the energy of Pluto could feel like things are crumbling and things are destroying all around you, it's important to know that that is an illusion and that will make you feel powerless over your situation. Like, if things are destroying, it means things are being built. Okay, Pluto's the planet of destruction and rebuilding. And so it's just contemplating what in your life you want to tear down and what you want to build or move towards. It's because every single generation has experienced things in different ways, but every single generation feels these themes around, the world is ending, or things are so this, or things are so that. But all around us, there's always momentum. There's always opportunity. Are you looking for it? Are you building momentum in positive directions? Are you looking for creative solutions to the problems that maybe you're witnessing within the collective or witnessing within your industry, right? Mercury in Capricorn trine Uranus and Taurus. This could be thinking about different ways that you want to communicate within your business or solve problems within your business. That could absolutely be alive here. So our lunar story, a little after midnight, the Scorpio moon trines Venus in Pisces. You may have felt that the night prior. There could be a passionate energy, a desire to really want to enjoy this experience, maybe take a hot bath, have a yoga class, do something that grounds you and anchors you in constructive ways, like I said. We also have the Scorpio moon sextiling Mercury in Capricorn in the morning time around 6 a.m. So it could be powerful for some motivating work calls or something like this, or a very illuminating journal sesh, meditation sesh, something like that. The Scorpio moon will trine who it's answering to, traditionally Mars in Cancer at 7 a.m. So time to listen to your energy, grab hold of those moments of inspiration as they come up. Again, it could surprise you. Uranus is the planet of the unexpected. The Scorpio moon also opposes Uranus today. So sometimes our motivations surprise us. Sometimes we just get motivated to get a new dishwasher and to finally move forward on some of the home projects we've been meaning to do for a time. Like, grab hold of it, right? And sometimes your emotions surprise you, and sometimes that's around, wow, I'm still sad about something that I thought I was over. But sometimes it surprises you around, wow, I'm not sad anymore. It's so weird. You really do just get over something on a random Tuesday morning. Or in this case, on a Thursday morning. Again, it's not that we're totally healed, but sometimes you just find that something you were destroyed over, you're just like, oh, okay. And sometimes it's helpful to remind yourself of that, because we don't always have that perspective when we're in it, right? When we're in the messiness, when we're in the hurt, when the heartache, when we're in the betrayal, when we're in the loss, we don't always have that perspective. We think it's always going to be the sharp, searing, burning pain forever. But sometimes it's helpful to think about the last times that you felt it and you thought that the world was going to end. And then now you don't even think about that person who betrayed you in that sort of way. Like, they don't even enter a thought in your mind. They like hit you up years later in your DMs begging for a second chance, and you literally are like, who are you? Sometimes having that perspective around, hey, this situation might be new and the pain might be fresh, but if I could get over that and I felt like my life was over then, I know I'll get over this as well. I know that the person that I'm screaming, crying, throwing up about now is going to hit me up in 3 years' time begging for a second chance, and I'm literally not going to remember who they are. I'm literally going to be confused. Allow yourself to surprise yourself. Sometimes it comes on around, wow, I'm still sad about this, or this emotion came out randomly, and it's knowing, in this process of defrosting, that's part of it. But sometimes it just catches you by surprise around one day you see their name and you're neutral about it. Or one day you see something that reminds you of that painful situation and you kind of just shrug about it. Like, life just has a funny way of just continuing to go on. And sometimes we surprise ourselves emotionally with how it is that we react to life. And I think there's an encouragement there to allow that. And again, emotionally honor where it is that you feel inspired, where it is that you want to grab hold of motivation, where it is that you want to move your body even. The Scorpio moon trines Neptune at 4:03 p.m. So it might be a lovely Thursday afternoon to sprinkle in a little bit of magic, a little bit of mysticism into your evening, whether it's like a little ritual or reading an astrology book or kind of like losing yourself into something that you are passionate about. You won't be that productive from that point onward, nor should you be. Moon trining Neptune, give yourself the afternoon off to ponder, to wander, to write poetry, to take a bubble bath, to do a meditation, something like this. The moon enters Sagittarius at 8:23 p.m., which is adventurous, expansive energy that asks us to connect to the big picture of our life, the direction in which it's going. On Friday, January 24th, the moon is in Sagittarius all day long, sextiling Pluto in Aquarius and the Aquarius sun in the morning time. So again, allowing momentum to be something that is empowering, recognizing that you are in charge of the momentum within your life. Again, sometimes we can feel out of control, like our life is a train going in a direction that we don't want, not feeling powerful enough to stop the train or to get on a different train or something like that. But I think this energy is an honoring, Sagittarius moon is the archer, arrow point in the distance. It's honoring, the direction of my life is going one way. I might feel out of control, but I am the conductor of this train. And the further that I get, the more difficult it is to reroute my direction. And it's just honoring. Maybe I can't stop the train altogether. Where can I get off on the next stop? Or where can I get acclimated within a map? Where can I acknowledge the maybe uncomfortable truth with the energy of Pluto that this is not what I want. This is not the direction that I want to move towards. This is not a direction that is inspiring, empowering for me. We've got a passionate weekend, Venus, trine Mars. These are the two passionate planets and very soulful territories, water signs. Really lovely weekend for music, for art. I think the Sagittarius moon wants to remind you there's a big world out there. Sometimes we can feel very tunnel vision with Pluto energy around getting lost within our phone, getting lost within this bad habit. And sometimes it helps just be in different environments, just remind ourselves it's a wide, wonderful world. There's people all around us with the energy of the sun in Aquarius. And sometimes going to an art gallery, going to a music show, striking friendly conversation when you're at a boutique. Sometimes those small interactions, those deviations from a routine remind us that there's a big, wide, wonderful world out there, and opportunities for connection are all around, opportunities for adventure are all around. So while the Sagittarius moon wants adventure and exploration, in case you're working on Friday, which many of us are likely, the energy is helpful. I would just say focus might be a little bit of a challenge. The Sagittarius moon opposes Jupiter at 6:45. So especially as the day continues, you could find it harder to stay on track. You could be getting pulled into different discussions or maybe having multiple tabs open on your computer of different things that you want to do, or just kind of getting lost in different worlds that you're building within your own mind. There can also be an energy around, pushing it to Monday. Jupiter energy can sometimes show up as procrastination from a good place, right? It's an optimistic energy. So it's like, I'll get it done on Monday. Will you? Mars is retrograde. Okay, be gentle with yourself with Mars retrograde. Whatever you think is going to take 2 hours is probably going to take 4 hours. Okay, and so try not to be too optimistic, as well as strive not to indulge too much in the excessive energy of Jupiter later on in the day, whether it's a happy hour or something like that. So on Saturday, January 25th, at 3:54 p.m., Venus exalted in Pisces trines Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer is not dignified. Venus in Pisces is very dignified, but nevertheless, this is a soulful, passionate, beautiful energy around really allowing vibration and alignment to be your guide. What feels good will motivate you around when and where you should take action. And I don't mean that in immediate gratification way around it feels good to scroll, it feels good to reconnect with Joey, it feels good to grab a vape. I'm not saying that. I'm saying around tuning into what feels aligned, like really allowing your intuition to guide you. And even as it relates to how you want to spend your weekend, like really honoring what feels delightful and yummy and sensual for you to move towards this weekend. Is that a walk in the park? Is that going to the museum, listening to some beautiful music? You can find some really soulful, serendipitous experiences if you really allow intuition to guide you around what feels good, right? Like I said, Venus is stronger in this trine than Mars. And Venus is how it is that we attract what it is that we want. Mars, how we go out and get it, assert ourselves, fight for what it is that we want. Whereas Venus is where it is that we attract it to us. And so it feels like the more that we are in our Venus energy, doing what makes us feel good, doing what makes us feel happy and joyful, doing what is truly loving, long term. Again, Venus separating from Saturn, what is truly loving for ourselves, not what is immediately feels like loving to ourselves, what's loving within the long term, that feels like it's going to make us more magnetic for the situations that we desire, as well as be in the vibrational space necessary in order to take charge, in order for us to take aligned action is kind of the energy. Not in this energy of, scarcity or desperation, but just in this energy around I feel good and taking this particular action feels good. I feel good and taking this walk around the park feels good. And oh, there's a museum gallery, that feels good. Venus is the planet of pleasure. And I think a lot of times if we're trying to make a decision around should I go to this party, should I not? Should I go to this museum gallery, should I not? Sometimes it just helps to tune into your body. Like, does it feel like a yum? Does it feel like a yuck? Like when that invitation comes in, does it feel like yummy and expansive, or does it feel like, honor that? Because what I also want to bring forward here is that you may not be feeling particularly social. We are currently in the waning crescent moon phase, the balsamic moon phase, which tends to be a time of coming inward, of release, of solitude, of processing. You might be feeling randomly inspired that you're wanting to clean out, the closet, or you're wanting to take a yoga class and cry in half pigeon. Listen, honor what feels right. I think that's the ask with Venus in Pisces, trine Mars in Cancer. Listen to your energy. This is a watery trine, and water is an element that tends to be mysterious. It doesn't always make sense. It's the energetic and emotional undercurrents of life, but it's so powerful when you take action from that place of alignment and not forcing alignment. A lot of times when you take aligned action, things go better. They flow better. And there's an ask to really honor that this weekend, as well as if you are in a space where you don't know what to do, step one should be pouring into yourself, where you're in that Venusian place around, I feel good, I've been loving to myself. That's always going to support you in making the better decisions for yourself. Like, think about when you go grocery shopping when you're hungry. Worst idea ever, right? You're gonna grab Cheetos and Frappuccino drinks. You don't even drink those, but they looked good. When we're not feeling nourished, we're not going to make decisions that are very empowered. But if we go into the grocery store, we already feel fed, we're going to be in a more satiated space where we're able to buy the things that are really going to make us feel good, the ingredients that we're really going to like to cook with, right? And the same goes with every other arena of life. If you're going into dating already in this energy of scarcity or desperation, you're going to be in that energy of settling. If you go into a car dealership and you need a car at that particular moment and you have to take the bus and you're sweaty and you just are in that desperate energy around wanting a car, you're not going to make the most empowered decision. And if you have been depriving yourself, not showing yourself love, you're going to allow other people to have access to your energy just because you're craving that validation from outside of you. Pour into you first. That'll allow you to make and take the actions that are truly empowering, truly nourishing, doing things that are very loving. When you are loving on yourself, you make good decisions for yourself. Venus is a planet that has to deal with magnetism, right? How it is that we attract things to us. And it goes two ways. When you are pouring into yourself, when you are loving yourself, when you are appreciating yourself, when you're doing the things that make you feel beautiful and valuable and nourished, you are going to be more magnetic. Things are going to be more drawn to you. When you are prioritizing your own alignment and making you feel good, you are more of an energetic match to things that are in alignment and things that feel good. But you are also more likely to go after what it is that you desire when you are pouring into yourself. So it's not just about, sitting back and self-caring the day away. It's around, yes, nourishing yourself, loving on yourself, appreciating yourself from that space, from that nourished space, feeling empowered and motivated to go after what it is that you want. Just because you ate a nice meal before you went to the grocery store doesn't mean that you don't need to get in your car and go get groceries. It just means that you've taken that moment to really pour into yourself firstly, and you can go into the grocery store, go into any opportunity from more of like a choosy vibration, not like a desperate, scarce energy, more from a choosy energy. I don't need to reach for the Cheetos. I don't need to reach for the Frappuccinos, things that'll give me instant gratification or relief right now. I can be more choosy. I can look through the produce and contemplate, should I make something with this? Should I make something with this? What lucky fruit or vegetable is going to get to come home with me? Because we've taken that opportunity to nourish ourselves. So yes, sometimes the opportunities that we like are just more magnetized to us when we are pouring into our Venus energy. But also sometimes we are more bold and more courageous to go after what it is that we want because we deserve it. You know, Venus is around love. It's so empowering to frame the things that you want around, I'm so worthy and I am so valuable and I love myself so much that I want myself to have this nutritious meal, that I want myself to volunteer rather than give hours of my time to these apps, that I want myself to go outside and have some fresh air rather than vape, that I want myself to prioritize relationships that are mutually beneficial, that I want myself to pour into my hobby of painting. Like really centering it around loving yourself rather than being like, then I'll feel worthy as soon as this happens. Then I'll feel lovable. Then I'll feel beautiful or what have you. Step into that now and it'll be a lot easier to move towards what it is that you desire because it truly is not waiting for you there. Once you get that thing, once you get that validation, once you get that goal achieved, you have to build it and weave it into accomplishing what it is that you want to accomplish. And the funny thing is it's actually easier for you to get to what it is that you desire the more that you are valuing yourself and prioritizing yourself on that pursuit. And so our lunar story on Saturday, while we have this like passionate, soulful, artistic, intuitive, Venus trine Mars energy building, the morning might get off to a little bit of a blah tone with the Sagittarius moon square Saturn in Pisces. You might wake up with an acknowledgement of the errands you have to run today, or your child's soccer game, or a pounding headache from too much wine the night prior. There could be some uncomfortable realities you're having to face in the morning time. Again, the call for adventure is alive with the Sagittarius moon. Let your own intuition guide you towards what adventure is right for you with the Venus trine Mars. And with the energy of the Sagittarius moon trining Chiron in Aries in the morning can feel healing to be connected to this wide, wonderful world, to recognize, hey, there's a whole world outside my phone. There's a whole world outside of this toxic dynamic that I have with Joey. There's this whole world outside of, my vape. Like sometimes it helps us to connect to that, right? But like I said, waning crescent moon, you could be more so craving solo adventures, right? Maybe you're craving a hike or something like this. The Sagittarius moon squares Venus in Pisces, so just being conscious around where it is that you could be indulging or even escaping. Let's just say it, Sag moon, Venus in Pisces, two Jupiterian signs. Sometimes there could be a certain degree of escapism alive. And pay attention to your dreams on Saturday night as the moon squares off with Neptune. So on Sunday, January 26th, very early on Sunday, the Sagittarius moon squares Neptune in Pisces, and I had shared in Saturday's forecast, pay attention to your dreams. Saturday night, Sunday morning, Neptune energy always kicks up our dream state if you are somebody who dreams, and really honor the messages that could come through in your dreams, because Mercury in Capricorn sextiles Neptune in Pisces. So take this opportunity to interpret it, contemplate the symbols, contemplate the themes, take a moment to dive deeper into exploring it. What could this be representing? What could this be a symbol of? Look at a dream dictionary. Things like this can be supportive. Again, it could be random. It could be meaningful. Up to you. You get to choose your perspective. Everything could be meaningless and random, or everything could be magical. You can really look at the world as though everything is magic or nothing is magic. Like you get to choose the perspective. And I suppose with Mercury sextile Neptune, it's asking, whether it's in dreams or other arenas of your life, to choose a perspective that makes it a little bit more magical. You got to build the mental landscape. You got to build the world that's going to be the most supportive for you, truly. I'm not saying you need to be delusional and out of touch or things like this, but you really got to build a mental story, a self-concept that supports, yes, who it is that you are, but also who it is that you are evolving to be. How it is that you are creating and conjuring the new. How it is that you are stepping into who it is that you're evolving to be. I've shared this with you before. I have no hesitation at all around gaslighting myself if it will allow me to get a better result in the end. Like for me, since we're talking about, habits and detoxing and things like this, I had to trick myself to keep myself from going back to something that was very, very destructive and was very toxic for me. I remember I had the acknowledgement that this was toxic and it was aiding my own destruction. Like I was just watching myself destroy myself. And I remember when I had that acknowledgement, there's a mural by my house, and it just so happens that that was the day that someone had graffitied over this beautiful mural. And I was so upset. I remember looking at that mural, and that's just how my soul felt. Like it just felt so destroyed, felt so disrespected. And through perpetuating this cycle and just staying within this loop, I just felt destroyed in a sense, like its beauty had been destroyed. Again, Pluto energy is a reminder of our own resilience, right? But I just remember looking at that mural and just feeling so discouraged because I just felt this energy of resonance. And this was a mural that I looked at pretty much every single day. And now I would just have to look at this graffiti, look at this destruction every single day, and just think about the ways that I had, destroyed my own life or destroyed myself, or at least that's how it felt at the time. I know this sounds very dramatic, but you know how it feels when you're kind of like at a rock bottom of sorts. So that's how I felt. It just felt like there was no way back. It just felt like there was no way of getting back to myself, back to my soul's beauty, back to that mural within its entirety. And that was the day that I stopped. Like that was the day that I stopped, that I closed that door, that I walked away. And of course, when you walk away from anything, there is a withdrawal process. Like it was hell to move through. But how I tricked myself to stay away. This is how I tricked myself to stay away. It just so happened that 2 weeks after the graffiti incident, which coincidentally coincided with my own rock bottom within that situation, another artist came in and painted over it and painted a mural that is even more beautiful. Like when I tell you this mural is my very favorite mural, it has symbolism on it that is so deeply personal to me. Like it truly felt like a sign from the divine when I looked out my window and instead of seeing the graffiti mural, I saw this beautiful artwork with symbolism that's very personal to me. And again, you could think of it as a coincidence, the timing of the mural, but to me, it became a very helpful mental framework to have within my mind, where every time I felt tempted to go back to re-engage within that toxicity and within that destructive cycle, I would tell myself, don't you want to see this beautiful new mural every single day? Don't you want to see it? That was the divine's gift to you. And if you go back, somebody's going to graffiti on that mural. Is that ridiculous? Probably. It's not that somebody is literally going to go graffiti on my beautiful new mural should I go back to that. But I kind of tricked myself into thinking that. And to me, whenever I see that beautiful new mural that I love 20 times more than that old one, it just feels like the divine cheering me on and feels like a literal embodiment that even if you feel like someone has graffitied your soul, you feel like, discount bouquet at the grocery store, right? We all have those times where we feel like we're in that rock bottom or there's no way I'm going to come back from this, but you never know where you're just in the space of reinvention into something even more beautiful, even more aligned. Like when I tell you the amount of joy that this mural gives me every single day, and again, it is not literally connected with that particular habit, but to me, I've weaved that into my own mental framework to build a world around, nope, I love my new mural, so I'm not going back. Or because that mural can reinvent itself, so can I. It helps to engage with life in a little bit more of a magical way. If you have to trick yourself every so often, fine. But if the end result is positive, in this instance, me staying away from that, you staying away from whatever it is that you're wanting to stay away from, or moving towards whatever it is that you desire, so be it. It doesn't matter how you need to trick yourself in order to get there, so long as you're going there and you're getting there. And we also have on Sunday, Venus in Pisces, sextile Uranus in Taurus. So being open to new connections. It's a pretty passionate weekend. It might be a waning crescent moon, but this might be a good weekend for dates. Pay attention to how you feel on the dates. Like rather than worrying about the other person having fun, are you having fun? Like be very present around what's feeling very good. With Venus, sextile Uranus, be open to saying yes to somebody that you might typically say no to, or be open to some sort of spontaneous date or spontaneous hangout or something like this. As well as with Venus, sextile Uranus, you might be surprised if you thrift You might happen upon things that are a little eccentric, a little random. You could eat something divine and delightful and unexpected. For interlunar story, like I said, the moon squares off with Neptune in the early hours. The moon then enters Capricorn at 5:43 a.m. where it stays all day. Do keep in mind we are building to the Aquarius new moon, which before a new moon, sometimes there is stuff that comes out. Sometimes the energy of Capricorn moon, things can feel a little sobering, things can feel a little stark. We could be a little hard on ourselves. We could be restricting our emotions, something like this. But we do have those nice Sunday sextiles, which can infuse a little bit of magic in your Sunday, even with the moon in its detriment. And somebody who's musically oriented, I am not, but somebody should start a band called the Sunday Sextiles. Because that sounds cute. But anyways, my loves, that is our week. The Magic Monday mantra of the week is, I am committed to my own becoming. Every single day, you have to allow the hunger within you for change to be more ravenous than the hunger in you for comfort. You have to choose who it is that you're evolving to be rather than who it is that you have been. Okay, that's the only way that we can change. And again, we can lament and complain around the changes that we want to see globally. You see where it is that you can enact change right here, right now. If you're sick of yourself, if you're watching yourself do something that you know is self-destructive, that you know is not going to take you to the train station that you deeply want to go in, it's empowering to recognize that you are in the driver's seat. And again, a lot of entities, organizations, governments, businesses, people will want you to forget how powerful you are, right? Will want you to continue to sleepwalk through life or to think that you are just the sum of what's happening around you. Take your power back, reclaim your power, even if that's showing up in very small ways, just being committed to your own becoming. I'm not saying everybody needs a drastic 180 life shift. Maybe some of you are craving that. Sometimes it just starts small around, today I'm committed to my own becoming around my health. I'm going to make decisions that align with how the most empowered, actualized, loving version of myself would feed and nourish their bodies. Or I'm committed to my own becoming within my relationship. We're going to really do the work to embody that power couple that we want to be. It's choosing. It's choosing evolution. It's choosing change. It's choosing to recognize your own power, to put into motion the results that you want, the transformation that you want. So my loves, if you made it to the end of this forecast, go ahead and comment below the train emoji, choo-choo. I'm Conductor Comet here, guiding you through another week of astrology. I'll see you again in the cosmic corner of the internet, same time, same place. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, as always. And until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.